In Sackville, New Brunswick, Keegan Hawthorne has a short commute to work, just down the stairs and into his living room. He started Hardscrabble Press with his partner Lacey. They're using centuries-old methods to print books.
So these are some of the books that I've published. This one here, Nobody, was printed all on the letterpress machine. The paper for the cover of this book was hand-dyed, and the text was set by hand, letter by letter, and then assembled into the forms of the book and printed on the press and bound. I originally grew up in northern BC and did some schooling at Memorial University in Newfoundland, and that's where I first was introduced to letterpress printing and the book arts and the idea of a book as a beautiful object. And after several adventures, my partner and I have ended up back on the East Coast. That has allowed me to have the space and time to set up a printing shop.
Keegan and Lacey started with this small press. At first, they printed single pages of poems and illustrations. Now that they have a larger press, they can print entire books.
One of the other things that's great about this sort of craft is that it enables us to keep these old machines actually functioning. Nobody is making these presses anymore. Nobody is making the machines that make the type anymore. Without a community of craftspeople who are dedicated to keeping these machines running, that technology will be lost, and there's a chance it'll be lost forever. Okay, so in order to print a book, we first have to assemble the text that we're going to print. And so with letterpress, the letters are actually assembled letter by letter into lines. And then those lines are assembled line by line, and then you have what's called a form, and then you take that over to the press, and then you print that on the press. So this is what's known as a proofing press, which means that the type goes flat on the vertical on the bed of the press here, and the paper gets affixed to this drum, and it's the weight of the drum pressing into the type that actually transfers the ink from the type onto the paper. So at the front here we have a system of rollers, rubber rollers and oscillating rollers, and these are what will put the ink down onto the surface of the type, which is here. So when we turn the handle, the rollers go over the type and deposit ink. When we get to the end, the rollers are going to pick up more ink from the flat drum there, and that clicking noise is when the paper gets affixed to the drum. And so on the return journey, the paper is now being pressed into the surface of the type, and the ink is being transferred from the type onto the paper.
The press isn't Keegan's only job. He also works at the Mount Allison University Library. That commute is a little longer, though only a bike ride away.
The first time I was really wowed by a book as an object was when I was in my undergrad at Memorial University in St. John's, and I was just looking for another book in the stacks, and I came across this spine. It was a leather spine, and when I opened it, it was one of the most amazing things I'd ever held in my hands. It was handmade paper. It was printed from letterpress type. The impression was really beautiful. The binding was gorgeous. You know, it was just an object that shone out from amongst the rest of the cheaply produced books that it was nestled in amongst. And that was the book that really started me on this path of wanting to make my own books that were, aspire to be as beautiful as that one.
Lacey helps design and edit the books at Hardscrabble Press. She took a publishing course at Oxford and learned more about letterpress printing at the Bodleian Library.
Hooray!
We both believe that it's important because of the tactility and the feel of an object. A book is something that you hold in your hands, and there's something different about a book that you can feel the impression of the letters, you can feel the texture of the paper, you can tell that a lot of care has been taken to set the type, and it's a very different reading experience than something that's mass market. There's something that people find a little enchanting, I think, to pick something up, and it's, it has a lot of texture. It's very engaging, I think, for a lot of people.
The press takes up a whole room in their house and a whole lot of their free time. But for Keegan, the work they do with the press is its own reward.
I think it's easy to live in our society and not be involved in making the sort of things that we consume on a daily level. We're pushed with online advertising and online shopping to consume in the easiest way possible. It's it's so convenient now. You don't even have to lift your finger to buy something. But I think the sort of the human drive to be involved in making the things we consume is pretty strong. You can see that in the way that people will grow, say, tomatoes on their back step. It's a lot more expensive and a lot more work than buying tomatoes at the store, but those tomatoes will taste a lot better because you've been involved in making them. And for me, the same goes for books. I love to read books. They're a big part of my life. And so there was this impulse to be involved in their making, in the creation of books. These crafts can teach us. They can teach us about how we used to be. They can teach us about who we were and who we still are.
Coming up.
Welcome to Curry Shoe Repair. We've been in business here now since 1903, so you're welcome to come in and have a look around and see what you make of the place.
Charlottetown, PEI, a city rich with Canadian history. It's changed a lot in the last 120 years, but at least one thing remains the same. Curry's Shoe Repair is open for business.
Hello, Mr. Curry.
How you doing?
I got a boot problem, wondering if you can help me out.
So let me have a look-see.
All right.
David Curry is 84 years old. His grandfather opened the shop in 1903, and he's been working here since he was a boy.
So when I started out, my father had me at the back of the shop taking zippers out of jackets, because that's all he could trust me with. I didn't know anything about repairing stuff or anything like that. And I just stayed here, and so I'm the last man standing, so to speak. And I don't think I'll be hiring anybody anytime soon.
The shop is full of old tools and machinery. Some of it dates back to when the store first opened.
This is something we used to use a lot, because when you're half-soling men's shoes, like you'd buy the soles, and they were 1/4 inch thick all the way through, and then you have to skive. We call it skiving. You had to skive the breasts, like, so you had to run them through this thing here, see, and that would take her down. It wasn't that thick. We got some more customers coming, eh?
I need 2 more holes.
There's one there, and there's another one. There you go. That's all yours. You don't owe me anything for that. That's on the house. Okay.
You're a scholar and a gentleman. You'll be remembered long after you're forgotten.
Next time I see you in the bootleggers, you'll owe me. This is what we call a heel wheel. It's when we used to do a lot of women's heels. Like you put the screw nails in here, and then you could put the heel on with this machine, and there was no, you didn't have to worry about trying to do it by hand. And you just put the pressure alone would push those screw nails into that heel, and it would be on as solid as if it came out of the factory. You wouldn't even know about it up here at all. And it was like the manufacturer, see, when we used to do a lot of these. Well, it's just an old-fashioned Singer sewing machine. They've been around for years. I don't know what you'd have to pay to buy a new one, because we always had these machines. I think I bought this off a fellow he used to have a shop for $500, and that's 20 years ago. And it still works like a charm, see, look. So this is what we'd have to use if you're putting a zipper in a boot, eh? I couldn't do any better than what I've been doing if I spent $75,000 on that new equipment. It's what a lot of stuff I'm doing, like they did in 1903. I still do stuff by hand. And it's just, you just got to use your head, that's all, figure things out, how to do it.
Curry's Shoe Repair used to have a prominent storefront on Queen Street. In fact, the Curry family owned an entire block of buildings. Over the decades, business waned and the shop downsized. David keeps memories of the old days close in the new location.
These are my father's ledgers from, well, just an example. This is 1952. These are the number of shoemakers that were on the island, and they all did business here with our shop. There was at least 25 on this book alone, but nobody would know anything about that today anyway. 1952, that's quite a ways back, isn't it? And then he kept a good set of books, Father. He was meticulous with his bookkeeping, as you can see. I was a little more scrabbly when I get into this part of it. This is my grandfather's famous cash box from 1903. That was his till, I guess, what they put the money in, and I got his little first penny from 1903 still on the side of it, so it's got things over 100 years old, you know. It's holding up pretty good. One of the older gentleman's hammers, see the way it's worn right there? Their hand was wore right through into the handle. That's how much hammering they did in those days. Father used to say he'd come home at night and his hands would be sore from hammering all day long. During the war, the British Air Force were out at the airport, and they used to do boxes and bags of their shoes all day long, hammering.
There's a bit less hammering going on in the shop these days. A lot of the time, his days are quiet.
Now, Heather, these two pair turned out real good, eh, La?
Okay, good.
I didn't think they'd turn out so good, eh? But I also did all the heels, too.
These turned out better than I thought.
Yeah. Well, I don't usually dye shoes anyway, but anyway, I said
Okay,
for
that's good.
you. And then I fixed 2 or 3 of these items that were broken, and then this here thing, it was falling underneath like
I
that,
know
so
it
it's
was.
all right now.
Okay, that's perfect. So you
Okay.
don't mind if I
No,
pay
no,
for it?
I know you, and I know where to get you.
You do know.
That's your man that's building that place out in Hunter River, isn't he?
It is.
See, I know that too,
You
see?
do. You have like all the.
Oh, I get everything, and even worse now. It's awful. It's awful to be famous, isn't it? It's a dying trade. I mean, you got shoemakers, blacksmiths, harness makers. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ask anybody, they'll tell you. So the handwriting's on the wall. But they're trying to get rid of me in this kind of sneaky way, you know, but that's the way it is.
Despite business slowing down, he still has some regular customers. Over the years, Bernadette Donovan has brought around 10 pairs of shoes to David.
Any idea if you can fix these?
Oh dear, that's going to be...
This one right here, yeah. What do you think?
Well, the big thing is with it, if I can take that apart and patch it inside, it'll be fixable. Otherwise, I'll just have to improvise. Like, I'll do it one way or the other.
Okay.
It'll either be done. See, normally what you do, you take that apart, you patch it, and then you put it back together. I could have them Friday, and I'll shine them and waterproof them and
That'd be
do all kinds of little tricks. So
thank
now
you
you're
so
a TV
much.
star.
All right. Thanks
Okay.
So much.
It wouldn't be fair to teach somebody this trade and say, well, you can take it over and stuff like that. It just wouldn't work. Financially, it wouldn't be feasible. As long as I'm here, it'll be okay. I'll still have like that lady that came in today. It's worth coming to work just to have a chat with her. I had a great run. I don't have any complaints. I mean, I raised 5 boys. They're all educated. They're gone through university. They all have big paying jobs. And I had a good life. I made some money and I worked hard. I worked 6, 7 nights a week for years, and I don't have any regrets. But I mean, I'd like to see it come back the way it was, but that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The handwriting's on the wall, I guess, but I'm going to stick around. I'm going down swinging.
Coming up, the spirit of Santa keeps one Nova Scotian woodcarver busy all year round. Elizabeth Brown's life has taken her across the country, but like many Maritimers, she made her way back to her hometown in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. She's made a thriving business out of one of the oldest handicrafts around, wood carving.
I first learned to carve when I was living in the Annapolis Valley, and it was just a little introductory course by a guy named Bob Morrison, who's still a good friend of mine. He put that passion for it in me. He had such enthusiasm, and he was so keen to learn and to teach, and I caught it like a cold. I just loved it. The first time I heard a knife going through crisp wood, I was hooked. And I just continued from there, just teaching myself mostly after that, and I've been trying to learn and get better ever since.
Elizabeth used to travel around to craft shows in her free time to sell her work. Then, a few years ago, she hit her big break. Hallmark was making a Christmas movie featuring wooden Santas, and she was commissioned to carve them.
The carvings were very much featured in the movie. They were one of the stars of the movie. And as we sat there watching it, my partner and I looked at each other and thought, oh, wow, we're in trouble. So life has changed dramatically since then. The demand has been 3 years, and I cannot possibly meet demand. Folks from all over North America saw the movie or just heard about me through other ways. And this is my full-time job now, is to carve Santas mainly. The collectors love them, and I love the collectors. So it's a happy marriage. And there's my trusty little sidekick, Bowie. He's my shop dog. He just hangs out and watches the action.
Her carvings start off as a plain wooden block. Then she gets to work, slowly chipping away to reveal a figure.
This is what I've carved so far today. People always wonder if there's a pattern or something, but one of the downsides to carving in wood is as soon as you put a pencil line on it, you're going to carve it off. So there's not a whole lot of point in putting a lot of pencil marks on it because it's an evolution. With wood carving, you are taking away rather than adding to. So this process, I usually start with the hat, if he's going to have a little hat. I've already known that wood was there for me. I cut it out that way. And then the next order of business is the nose, because on the face, the nose sticks out the furthest. So these are some of my tools. There's more, but these are the ones that I would probably use the most. And they range from Swiss tools to English to some firmer gouges, they're called. I've collected them for 30 years. So a lot of times I am actually buying secondhand tools and refurbishing them. Folks who either thought they would like the hobby and change their minds, or people who are retired from the hobby and they look me up, they call and say, do you want my tools? So a lot of times I can't help myself. I just say yes.
Once the Santas have been fully carved, they get sanded down and touched up. Then they're ready to be painted.
Hey Liz,
Hey babe.
how you doing today?
Good.
Do you have lots for me to paint?
So those guys are set,
Okay.
but these guys are gonna need some touch-ups. If you could take these and sand.
The nose on this one,
Yep.
I see.
Yeah, this one's got a little divot there
And also,
a
okay.
couple little crunchy bits. So if you want to take care of those.
Elizabeth's partner, Jeff, quit his job as a carpenter to help paint the Santas. He comes in every day to put the base coat on so she can focus on carving.
Yeah, people do find value in handcrafted items because they realize that you can't buy 100 of this. It's one of this style. There'll never be another one made again. And it does take time and patience. They're not a $5 item. The dollar value reflects on what it takes to make this item. So yeah, I think people do appreciate it. It's great.
Elizabeth can hand carve about 500 Santas a year, but her wait list is in the thousands. She's still committed to her way of doing things.
The way I do it, I'm sure people shake their head. Why are you still hand carving everything? Because there are lots of fast and easy ways. There's CNC machines and there's 3D printers. For me, that old-fashioned part is the appealing part. The part where I do everything by hand means that if you buy a carving from me, no one else has that carving because I started with a block. So you can't get much more original than that. The way that I carve wood connects me to the past and to the original way that I presume that carving was one of the first things we learned, because you needed to stir a pot. After the first guy made a pot, someone needed to stir. It is a connection through the past. I've done a lot of other types of carving. I do some chainsaw carving. I have never done any amount of Dremel carving because the connection that I have with the wood and pushing the tools through the wood is completely lost. And it's loud and it's messy, and I love the simplicity of just a knife and a nice piece of wood. There's something clean and quiet and meditative about it. You really can't stress out while you're carving.
New technologies have transformed the way we live, and some old ways of doing things may never be what they once were. But folks like Elizabeth Brown are committed to keeping the old ways alive.
I think people are getting more interested in it because we're hitting a ceiling of technology. There's nothing you can't find. There's no questions you can't answer. And it's nice to have that exploration again, to do something with your hands, to have to learn something the hard way by repetition and by building skill. And I think there's an appeal to that. I think that it goes back to our human nature. It's how we all evolved from the start, is to do things to better our lives. Well, maybe carving something decorative isn't bettering your life, but it certainly connects you back to something pretty primal. And using your hands to do anything. It's like being allowed to build your own home. It gives you a sense of empowerment that you have the ability to take a blank piece of wood and turn it into a piece of art. It's pretty amazing, and it's a dream come true.